Back here, my favourite place in the world, Harley Davidson in Manchester. Today I am going on something a little bit different. It's got a little bit more power than mine. You can see my little bike there, that's what I've come on today. But today I'm going on something with a little bit more grunt. Let's go. Right then, you beautiful lot. What do we think of this? So it's the Harley Davidson Fat Bob. No, my name's not Bob before you write it in the comments. And I've been going to the gym this week, so, you know. Back to the bike. What do we think of it? You're going to have to stay for the test ride because I'll tell you exactly what I think of it then. Looking at it, it looks gorgeous. We'll have a walk around the bike the usual way. Show you the bits that I like personally, and then don't forget, stay for the test ride. So there's our close-up. I know these bikes aren't for everyone, and you've got to be a certain type, I think, to like cruisers. I'm in that camp. I really love the look of them. Now this just looks proper menacing, especially when you come round to the front headlight. It's got this rather menacing one at the front, but I think it suits the look of the bike. I think it looks awesome. Now the exhaust on this, let's be brutally honest, this is quite tame, I think, noise wise. Certainly compared to my own, it is, but that's because of Euro compliance and all of that stuff we've got to comply with over here. This has got an aftermarket exhaust on, however, that gives it a little bit more, but it is still quite quiet in comparison to the older bikes. I'll let you listen to it in a bit. It sounds alright, it's just not as loud as mine. It's more civilised. Like that look as well, they've not just stuck the number plate on underneath the rear mudguard. It's completely separate at the back. I think it does make the back end look that little bit nicer. All the way around to the other side. It's a single disc brake at the back, and for a big heavy bike it stops alright, and I'll show you on the test ride. Twin discs at the front, they are Harley Davidson branded. Again, heavy bike, but from my little ride I've had already, the brakes work really well. It's got the 114 engine. Now I know on my recent Harley video I went out on the lowrider and that's got the 117. That thing has got loads of power. This has got what I would call enough power. Unbelievably comfortable. I'll show you the seat position very shortly, but I find this seat is just moulded perfectly to me. I sit in here, fit in beautifully, and I've got this back bit here which just supports the lower part of your back, which I think makes for a really comfortable seat. Unlike the custom one that was on the lowrider, this one actually feels lovely. It really, I can't rave enough about this seat. It's just really supportive and really comfortable. For a pillion, however, there's not a great deal of a seat there. Now if you compare my hand size to this seat, there's not a lot of room. So again, if you're putting someone on the back, they need to have a little bottom. No grab handles, like two bazookas coming out the back. Belt drive. The wheels are nice, they're not very old school looking, but I don't think this bike is very old school looking. It is a nice modern cruiser. With that wide tyre, it just sits really nicely on the road. Buttons, I think these are fairly standard now for Harley. So very similar to my own Harley. All we've got on this side is we've got your left indicator, we've got your horn, we've got, let's call it like a menu button, so it just flicks through the options that you get on the little screen that I'll show you shortly, and it just moves between your clock and your rev meter and your trip miles, all that kind of stuff. High and low beam. On the right hand side, again, identical to my own, it's just a right indicator. We've got a keyless bike, so we've got your on and off switch here, and then once you've switched it on, which is that one, start the engine there, and you've got your hazards as well. But quite basic as far as the controls go. But it's good because I don't like loads of buttons. I like to play with stuff, yeah, but when you've got your riding gloves on, and they are quite thick, you don't want to have 50 buttons to choose, and these have got literally 3 or 4 either side, which is perfect if you've got a big old fat thumb. Cruise control is brilliant. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I don't spend a lot of time talking about specs. I'll always put those on at the end. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, then stay to the end. If you're not, and you just want to know what the bike feels like, what it rides like, then make sure you stay for the test ride. But one of the things I really love about this bike is the seating position, the riding position. So you can see I'm 5'8". I don't have my legs stretched out here. They have got a little bit of a bend in them. Flat foot both sides. Really easy when you come to a stop. You don't have to worry about being all tippy-toed like you do on a lot of bigger bikes. I know, short person problem, but still a problem. This bike, none of those issues. Now, position for me for riding is my favourite with a cruiser. Not a massive fan of having the mid controls when you've got a cruiser. I think it ruins the whole feel of it. If you've got a cruiser, you've got to have the foot forward controls, and it makes for a comfortable ride, and this certainly is. Fat boy on a Fat Bob. That's going to do us for the walk round. I will be completely honest with you, as I feel I always am. Now, the last Harley Davidson I went for a ride on, the lowrider, I wasn't completely sold on it. The seating position where the pegs were placed just didn't suit me. The power was amazing. The 117 engine, awesome. It pulls like a train. This has got the 114, which I think is still a nice engine. It's still a good engine. You can still get a decent amount of power out of it, or a decent amount of speed out of it, but it's not quite as brutal on the acceleration. In my lowrider test ride, I won't say I slated that bike, but there was a lot of things that I personally had issues with that didn't suit me. So I will be completely honest with this bike. When I ride it, if there's an issue, I'm going to tell you about it. And if it's a size issue, obviously I'll tell you about that as well. Because if it's a size issue, my issue won't be your issue. If you're a little bit taller, but if you're a similar height or shorter, then it might be. So make sure you stay for the test ride, and you'll get my brutally honest review of this bike. And if you want more reviews similar to this, hit the subscribe button. Come on, join the party. Wait, let's go for a ride, show you what it's about. Now, I have heard that these can be quite difficult in the bends, or certainly the sharp turns, because of that big fat front tyre. But we'll see how we get on when we hit the twisties shortly. Can't wait for that. And I also can't wait for a breakfast, because I'm out with the boys today, so breakfast is essential. As far as riding position goes with this, I am a massive fan. It really does suit me, and that means it might not suit you if you're a bigger rider, but for me personally, at 5'8", I'm finding this bike absolutely perfect. The whole setup of it is really comfortable. The seat is lovely and plush like that, and the forward pegs are just perfect for my short legs. Now, I know the beauties with Harleys is if you don't get one that's set up for you, there's loads of little adaptations you can make to make it your own, but in its current form, this just suits me down to the ground. Literally a few minutes in, and I'm already thinking, this is a bit of me. This is, I like to see the speed here. It's in my eye line, whereas the speed is all the way down here, so you can't directly see it without actually looking down, and then when you look down, you're taking your eyes off the road. So I know that's something that you get used to, and I suppose if it was your own bike, you get used to the speeds, don't you? You know what 30 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour feels like. But initially, getting used to this bike, you're going to be spending a lot of time looking down, just checking that speedo. It's a small sacrifice to make at the minute, because everything else about this bike I'm really enjoying. admittedly, I did spend last night trawling through videos of this bike to see what people think of it. And do you know what? It's quite varied. There are people that absolutely love this bike. I did find one or two that had the odd issue with it, but I can confirm those people that had the odd issue with it, they're 100% wrong. Because I've not found anything at all with this bike so far that isn't really good. Now, I am on the motorway now. I'm just going to give it a little go down here. Now, as you know, because of my ongoing camera issues and my issues with GoPro, I have got to ride with my visor open. So it is quite windy, but you'd expect that because there is no wind protection here. But what I'm going to do, quick blast out here, we'll see what performance is like on this bike and how stable it is at higher speeds. So I'm off the motorway. I've got to say, as a bike for the motorway, this thing was absolutely perfect. Really, really planted on the floor. I don't know what the weight is, but it just feels like you pick a line and it is staying in it. There's no kind of moving over left or right. The wind's not blowing you anywhere. It's just a really lovely place to be. And the seat, because it's got that little lip at the back, it just keeps you really stable in the seat. I'm doing some long windy bends here and it just glides around them. I may well have a new favourite Harley after today. The nice and wide bars, you're sat up straight, your feet are forward, it's just everything is set up for me. It's as though they knew. There in front is just explaining to me about a message he sent me the other day on WhatsApp. It was a rather busty blonde lady, and as you flick through the pictures you actually get to the one where you can see her massive penis. Thanks Taff, but that's what he's into, boys and girls. Oh, what a beautiful little road. We've got some long windy roads, and you know what, this bike is absolutely beautiful for it. I really am struggling to find things I don't like, other than that being a little bit low, but that's a minor compromise. I'm not overly fussed with that. That's more of like the old school look anyway, so I'm not bothered really about that. Like I wasn't on the Sport Glide. The Sport Glide was my favourite Harley up until today. Oh, lovely bridge. And the comments about it going round bends and wanting to stand up and you're fighting it round the bend that I've heard on YouTube, I don't know where they've got that from. Whether they were running different tyres to what's on this, because this is going round a bend and it's effortless. Once you point it in that direction, it just glides around, and I've got no issues at all. The only issue I would have, and I have it with probably every Harley Davidson, which is they are very expensive, unbelievably expensive. But I own one myself because I just love the character of them. I think they're great bikes to ride. They're not perfect by any stretch. You know, if you want a perfect bike that does everything like clockwork, you're going for a BMW, aren't you, or something like that. It is fast enough. It is exceptionally comfortable. It is beautiful to ride. It goes through the gears really well. The brakes are really good as well. The slightest touch on those, you don't have to squeeze them until a vein pops out in your wrist. They are just, it's just a really nice overall bike. This has become my favourite Harley Davidson, and I know it's slightly more expensive than the Sport Glide, but for me it just fits me that little bit better. If you do have a spare £20,000 lying around, then I would say add in one of these to, I'm sure, what would be an already awesome collection, because you've already got a bit of money to your name. But adding this to it would certainly improve it, because it's an awesome bike. So So big thanks to Harley Davidson in Manchester for letting me take it out today. I'm going to take it back to them. And yeah, massive thumbs up. I hope I will one day be able to afford one. See you later, guys. Join me on the next one. Okay, quick overtake required. Quick overtake